everyone, it's Alice and welcome to our mid-month February wrap-up. So in February so far we've already managed to read 6 books, which I'm pretty chuffed with. We're halfway through the month, so we're 2 weeks in, and 6 books is pretty good, especially considering I only had to read 4 books for me to tick off everything on the TBR, so I'm pretty much there. Sean and I are not going to get everything from our TBR. I'll link the February Hooker Duck episode that we did down below. We're not going to end up getting everything read because I do have to have more teeth removed, and when we filmed it we didn't know that I was going to be having 2 appointments for my removals. We thought it was just going to be 1. So we aren't going to get everything read, but we're reading a lot of quite good books. So today I've only got 3 stars, 3 stars, a 4.5 star, and some 4 stars. So we've got like a good mixture of things. There's been nothing that's been less than a 3 star this month so far, so it is looking pretty good. So yeah, I'll get on with it. I'll start off with It Was Her by Mark Hill. This wasn't actually on our TBR for this month. This was on our TBR back in December. But because it's a physical copy and it's quite long, like it's just over 400 pages, but because it is a physical copy, it was a bit harder to find time to squeeze in because I can't find my book light, and so I can't read it in bed at night, and Ezra gets mad if the light is on, so I've just been reading on my phone instead. So this did take me a little longer than it should have. This is the second book in the D.I. Ray Drake series, following a detective called Ray who has some quite big secrets hidden in his past, but he's also part of this police force, so they are investigating crimes at the same time. In this book there are 3 people who are breaking into houses across England, and, well, specifically across London. So they're breaking into houses around London and they are killing the people in those houses, and the traces being left behind are minimal. So it's like a race against time to make sure that no other houses get broken into and no more families get killed. Also, Ray has a lot going on in his personal life, so there are people investigating him, trying to find out some of these secrets, and he's got like a weird relationship with one of his colleagues because she knows more than he wants her to, and she knows more than she wants to about him as well. So there's a lot going on in this one. It is quite a gripping one, but there's something about this one that just didn't click with me. So I found the first like 100 pages were an absolute breeze. I thought the idea of these 3 people who are breaking into the houses because they just want to live the lives that those people have. They want to be surrounded by the luxurious things. They want to have lots of rooms and like the comfort and the home. And breaking into those houses and eventually making the decision to kill when they are stumbled upon in one of these houses. I think that the motivations for those characters are very interesting, and that definitely kept me picking the book up. But it unravels very quickly, and I think Mark Hill's just trying to do too much with it. Very, very unsatisfactory payout as well with that plot line. Meanwhile, you've also got the bits going on with Ray. And I was more interested in those bits because the first book in this series is the crimes are also centred around Ray. So it's all about Ray Drake. And I really liked that because he's a fascinating character. But because this one is centred on this other crime spree, I just wasn't interested in those bits. And I wanted it to get back to the meaty story with Ray. But then when it did, it wasn't satisfactory either. So there was nothing in this one that really ticked the boxes for me. I enjoyed like half of both of the things that were going on, but I didn't enjoy the other half of those things. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. It is also frustrating because this is the second one in the series. This was released in 2018, I believe. Yeah, 2018, and there is no sign of a 3rd book yet. Mark Hill is actually writing a different series under the name MK Hill. So there is no sign of when Ray Drake's story is going to be continued, and this is left on one hell of a cliffhanger, and it's like the crime in the book and Ray's story, neither of them are satisfactorily wrapped up. So you want it to carry on and it doesn't. I think if there was a 3rd one and I could kind of offset the disappointment at the end of this book with the satisfactory conclusion of the next one, I might feel a bit happier about this one. But because there isn't another book yet, it just fell flat for me. So 3 stars for this one. But it is... The first one I highly recommend. The first one was a 5 stars, and I think it was because of how brilliant that first one was. I thought the second one was going to be just as good, so that's probably another reason that I'm a bit disappointed. Another book that I gave 3 stars to in February so far was Don't Ask Where I'm From by Jennifer De Leon. This is about a girl whose father gets deported, and she has to come to terms with the fact that she didn't know that her parents were illegal immigrants. She thought that they held their papers and that they were settled in America legally. She has to deal with the uncertainty of whether her dad is going to be able to get back to her, and she also has to deal with the fact that she has been chosen for a affirmative action course. So she is moving from her inner city school into a school out in the suburbs that is majority white, and it's upper class, and it's a very different environment to any of the ones she's ever been around. So there's a lot going on in this one, but again, like, there just wasn't really all that much at the same time. Like, the things that I wanted to be explored more, so the main character, I think her name is Liliana, she is creating little tiny houses, and she does creative writing, and I wanted those things to be explored more, but those are very kind of surface level, like, this is the reason she is going to this school, because of her creative writing. And although there are a few examples of it throughout, we don't actually get to see any of her writing. We get to see the teacher setting the assignment, and then we get to see what she decides to write about, but we don't actually see her writing, and I think that that would have made a difference to me. I did read this through the Riveted Lit Free Reads, and it did say that there were illustrations, but there weren't illustrations, so it might be a case that something was lost in translation with the e-copy that I read. So if you have read this one, please let me know down in the comments if there is, like, some kind of thing that I'm missing, because that was all I really needed to push this one into a 4, because it does explore the issue of deportation very well, the uncertainty in the families that remain behind, and the fear that everything could kind of come crashing down around you because your family have decided that they want to take that chance for a better future for their offspring, but then it's all kind of falling down around them. So the emotions regarding that were very well explored. There's also a relationship between Liliana and one of the boys at the school that is very well explored, because she's not quite sure how she works with him because of the fact that he is from, like, this upper class background and he is white, and she's not always comfortable in their relationship. That's really interestingly explored. And just the issue of racism and affirmative action, like, all of those different topics are explored very well. But I also just found the ending was a bit too happily ever after. It was a bit too neatly bowed up, and it was very unrealistic. There's a few different aspects that made me feel this way as well. So there's, like, a big assembly where they're meant to be talking about race and the way that it feels to be someone of race at this school where it is a white majority, but then all the white kids kind of start kicking off about it, but then they kind of come together as a school to do a project. I'm trying to not get too spoilery, but they come together to do a project, and it's almost like that's meant to make it all better, and that's meant to brush away all of the underlying racial things that are going on, and it just didn't really feel authentic to me, which is why this one was a 3 stars. The next book that we finished in February was Gemina by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is the second book in the Illuminae Files series. We read Illuminae in December, absolutely loved it, and I'm sad to say that we didn't love Gemina just as much. We gave this one 4.5 stars. I was tempted to kind of drop it down to 4. I do still really like what they're doing with these books, but I think because of how well the first one worked, it's hard because just by doing a second and a third book, it's copying the impact of the first one, and where the first one was very unique, as you're doing more of them in the series, it's taking away from that unique aspect, which isn't the best. I did like this one because this introduces the characters of Hannah and Nick. And Hannah keeps a journal. I'm just trying to, like, flick through and see if I can find any of her journal bits, because I thought that Marie Lu, who wrote Legend, Renegades, not Renegades, that's Marissa Meyer, Legend and The Young Elites, she does the illustrations for Hannah's journal, and they are gorgeous illustrations, and I think they're so brilliantly done, and I just wanted more of that. I think I would have absolutely loved this if there had been, like, pieces told in, like, graphic novel format, because Maria's illustrations are just stunning, and I can't find any more of them, which is really annoying me, because, like, honestly, I love these illustrations, and that was much more interesting to me than the transcripts of the videos, than the emails, than all of the conversations that were going on, and I would have liked to have seen more of that, that being said, I think my favourite character in the Illuminae Files series is introduced in this installment, and that is a girl called Ella. So she has been struck down by a virus in the ship a few years before. So she is a disabled character, and she's absolutely badass. And not only do you hardly ever see disabled characters in sci-fi, but to see a disabled character with such positive representation in sci-fi was a massive impact, and I liked that. And she also has a fish called Mr. Biggles too, and he is amazing, and I love him. So I was torn on this one because I kind of wanted to give it 5 stars, but then I thought, did I love this as much as Illuminae? No. Do I want this to be my first 5-star read of 2021? No, because it doesn't feel like a 5-star to me. And I thought this series was going to be all of them instant 5 stars, so for that not to happen was a bit of a shame. I don't think it helps that it moves very, very slowly. So this is over 650 pages. This is 659 pages in total. And it is a story that is set chronologically after Illuminae, but also there's bits where it flashes back to during the events of Illuminae, but it's a different ship and it's different cast of characters. And I think because of how fast-paced Illuminae was, because of how much I cared about all of the characters in there, because of how every single page either forwarded the action or it added something to the world or it gave you something else to think about, Gemina doesn't do that. It flounders at points. There are bits where it's just like Hannah and Nick kind of flirting away with each other, and although I like their relationship, when your ship is being held hostage and people are dying all around you, it's not the time. And it makes it feel like one of those YA books where the couples are kissing at really awkward points where it's not safe, and I've never really liked those kind of books, so not the one for me. But still a really great series, and I'm still giving it 4.5, possibly 4. 4.5, we'll stick with 4.5 because of the illustrations. Like, it is, I'm still recommending it, it just wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. And now we've talked about Gemina, we might as well talk about Obsidio, because we've also finished that this month. And this is also by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, with illustrations by Marie Lu. And I haven't rated this one yet, but I think it might be a 4. Which makes me really sad, because this series is very, very solid. It's very well written, there's very good humour, the characters are interesting, the motivations are interesting, the whole thing is great. You would have heard like hundreds of people talk about this, I don't need to persuade you to pick it up. But I just got a bit bored. I don't know if it's because we read both of these this month, and this is like over 1,200 pages of spacey drama. That's a lot of spacey drama for anybody to read in a month. But I wanted more of Marie Lu's illustrations. I wanted to see more of Hannah's journal, because we got that so much through Gemina, and you hardly get any of it, and that was a disappointment because I loved that. I wanted to see more of Ella, but because this book combines the characters from Illuminae, the characters from Gemina, and it also introduces another pair of characters who are down on the planet Carenza 4. And it's trying to do too much. It is trying to introduce Asher and Reese and make us care about them and their story, and it's trying to make us still love Katie and Ezra, and it's trying to make us still love Hannah and Nick, and Ella gets lost in the middle of it all, which is such a dang shame. But then so do some of the other background characters that we come to love. Like, in the first book, so many of the characters were well fleshed out, and even in Gemina, you had so many of the characters that were really well fleshed out, and it just feels like in Obsidio, it all falls to the wayside a little bit. It's, again, really, really slow, and then too quick. So they decide to travel back to Carenza 4, which is the planet which is attacked in the first book, and they decide to like travel back and try to rescue the people who are still on the planet. But it takes them like over half of the book to get there. Well over half. So well over half that it's like 2/3 of the book before they get there, and we've just spent the whole of Illuminae flying away from this planet, the whole of Gemina with them away from this planet, and then they're like, boom, 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 we're gonna go back, bum, 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 bum. 2/3 of the book later, oh, we're back, and then it all just kind of ends. It's not a very satisfying payoff. I would have liked it more if people had died. That sounds really horrible, but when you've got 6 main characters and you've got an author like Jay Kristoff that you've heard people say over and over that he's brutal, that he's no holds barred, that he is not afraid to treat his characters like shit, that he's not afraid to take risks, he's not afraid to make his book stand out in people's minds. When you've had pages and pages of deaths, like, there's bits, probably in Illuminate, I don't have it here, but, like, there are literally, like, pictures of the invading crew with, like, X's over the faces of the people who have been killed, because so many people are dying that you can't even keep track of it. There's, like, names and names and faces of people. All of these names of dead people. People who have died and been collateral damage throughout this series because of this horrendous invasion, and because of the fact that this planet has been kept under occupation, and because that these people are flying across the solar system in ships that aren't suited for that many people and aren't suited for that many things. When you've got those many minimal deaths, thousands and thousands, literally thousands of characters die in this series, and yet we're meant to believe that the main 7 are all teenagers who just survive. Like, I don't know, it sounds really horrible to be like, I wanted to see one of the main characters die. I wanted to have an emotional reaction from this. I wanted this to make me feel something, and it didn't make me feel something. I liked the first one because it was interesting, but, like, this is not going to end up being a memorable series for me. Like, I love the way that they're set out, I love the way that they're written, I love the fact that they're, like, 600 pages, but they're really quick reads. This is still a series that I would recommend, and I'm going to give it 4 stars. I've decided that, but I just wanted more from it. I guess it's probably because it's a YA sci-fi and I'm reading it as though it's an adult sci-fi because of the way that it's written. It reads more like it was adult, but I think if it had actually been marketed for adults, it would have been more what I was looking for. That's not the book's fault, that's my fault. But yeah, I probably should have considered what I was going to say about these before I just ranted for like 7 minutes. So let's move on to the next book. Oh, literally 7 minutes. I'm so sorry. The next book that I finished in February was Rules for Being a Girl by Katie Katugno and Candice Bushnell. Now, I do have some corrections to make. When I pulled this out of my TBR jar, I thought it was a non-fiction book. No, it's not. It's YA fiction. That was a nice surprise. And also, when I pulled this out of my TBR jar, I said that I thought Candice Bushnell was one of the people who acted on Sex and the City. No, she's the writer of the original Sex and the City book that the show was inspired by. So, way for me to make myself look stupid on our most watched video on this channel, of course. Rules for Being a Girl follows a girl who is kissed by her teacher. There's no other way to really go about that. Like, it's kind of spoilery, but it does happen very early on, and it is kind of the point of the whole story. He kisses her, and she isn't happy about it, and she doesn't know what to do, but it makes her start looking at the way society treat women, and the way that women are treated as commodities and belongings, and, like, men can do whatever they want to, and girls can't really express themselves. Girls shouldn't be able to, like, stand up and make a noise about things like this happening to them. Interesting book, but again, there was just something missing for me. So it's hard to put my finger on what it was, but there was something missing for me in this book. This is the book that I wish I'd had when I was younger. I wish I'd read this when I was in school, because it would have made me think about feminism in a completely different way, because I was one of those people that was like, feminists are crazy, and I'd never learnt about it. I'd never educated myself on the subject. I didn't know anything about it. I just heard that they were bra burners and they were mad women, and that's not a bad thing. Like, I'll say it now, like, if I was a feminist back then, I'd burn my bra. Fuck bras. They're not comfortable. I mean, some of them are, but, you know. Like, it shouldn't be... You should have the choice of whether you wear one, is what I'm trying to say. If they're comfortable for you, wear one. If they're not comfortable for you, then why should society judge you for that? This is just going to turn into a feminist rant, but basically what I'm saying is, it took me a long time to educate myself on feminism and to come to terms with the fact that I was a feminist, because I'd always just been told that it was a dirty thing to be, and it was a horrible thing to be, and that it was a bad thing to be, and it's not. And a book like this would have empowered me and would have made me look up authors like Roxane Gay, like Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And those women have had such a huge positive impact on my life, and reading their books has made me such a better person. And seeing a girl in a YA novel starting a book club to read those kind of books and to talk about those kind of books with her peers is a really positive portrayal of feminism, and I adore it for that. And I was tempted to give the book 5 stars just based off of that, because I think that that's something that YA needs. And feminism needs more people who are going to be cheerleaders and who are going to share the positive impact that it's had, and to share the positive connotations about it without making it sound like it's all bad. But basically, I liked that aspect. I just thought that the plotline with the teacher... It's hard to do this without giving spoilers. Basically, the way that it ends, again, isn't realistic. And if you've read this book, you will know what I'm referring to when I say that there's something that the students do to get out the word that this teacher has been inappropriate that they wouldn't have been able to do because it would have been stopped. It's probably the least spoiler I can possibly say it. That's the most vague I can be. But that just didn't make sense for me, and it didn't work for me, and I think if they'd done it any other way, I would have liked it more. But because of the way that it was done, I was like, yeah, that wouldn't happen. So that was what dragged it down to a 4-star for me. But this is still a really, really great 4-star, and I'm still going to be recommending this to young girls and young women who don't understand feminism and who need to get their heads around it, because we should all be feminists. We should, because it's a really important thing, and it's about equality between the sexes, and it's intersectional feminism, so it's equality between everyone, and that's only touched upon very briefly in this book. But with the authors and the works that are being recommended to the readers, if people then take that advice and go out and do their wider research, then they will learn about the intersectionality inherently, and I think that's just brilliant. So yeah, definitely a book that I would recommend. Definitely not non-fiction, but a very, very solid 4-star. And the last book that I've read in February so far was The Perfect Girlfriend by Karen Hamilton. Now, this was my friend pick for the month, and I'm grateful that my friends picked it for me, because it was a wild ride, but I only ended up giving it 3 stars because I just couldn't suspend my disbelief enough. So there's a girl called Juliet, and she wants to be the perfect girlfriend. But there's a catch. Her boyfriend Nate has actually broken up with her. So he says, I want some space. And she says, that's okay. And then gets a job at the airline where he works. He is a pilot. So she gets a job there, and she's like, right, okay, I will eventually get on a plane that he is flying, and then he'll know I work here, and I'll be like, look, I've been working here for so long, and I did not get up in your space, because I can give you space, because I'm perfect. I mean, yeah, you can see, like, her leaps are already quite wild, but it just gets, like, even madder from there. Like, the first half of this book was slow. Like, I was reading 10% a day, and I was struggling to get through that. I was falling asleep while I was reading it. I was, like, interested, because I was like, how is this going to drag out for, like, another 200 pages? And then it gets to the halfway mark, and everything just goes absolutely wild. It's so baffling. And, like, there's a shotgun wedding, there's a scene when she's getting, like, trapped in his bathroom. She breaks into basically every house of everyone she knows. She has, like, a spy app on her phone and is, like, stalking him. She hires a hunting trap. She, like, starts trying to sleep with his sister's husband-to-be. It's just insane. But I think I enjoyed it. I'm not sure. I'm settling on 3 stars because parts of me are like, how did this get published? This is just wild. And parts of me are like, this is so wild, how did anybody come up with this? This is genius. And Juliet's unravelling mentality and her obsession and her intense desire for Nate and her intensity the intense way that she makes these plans, like, it's all so believable that you can't really believe it's happening, if that makes any kind of sense. But yes, definitely an enjoyable book. I read the last half in one day. Considering I'd been struggling to get through the first half, I read like 55% in one sitting, and this was very, very late at night, so I should not have been up that late reading it, but wow. Karen Hamilton is definitely an author I'm going to be checking out again, and I have seen reviews from people who work in the airline industry saying it's actually a really realistic representation of the way that the airline travel industry works. So that's interesting. Like, if you are interested in a genuine portrayal of an air hostess, you've got one, but she's also wildly obsessed with her ex-boyfriend. So if you like psychological thrillers and air hostesses, this is going to be the book for you. And those are the 6 books that we have read so far in February. So as you can see, it's a mixed bag. There's been a psychological thriller, there's been some YA, there's been some like a contemporary, there's been like a crime. It's been a bit of a wild ride this month so far. I'm glad that we've got some high rated books. I'm probably gonna do like an in-depth review of the Illuminae Files series at some point, because I obviously, like, based off of the way that our discussion today has just evolved into me like rambling away, I obviously have a lot to unpack about this series, so that will probably be up at some point within the next few weeks, and hopefully I won't annoy anybody. But like, as I said, I've given them 4.5 and 4 stars. Like, I just like a series where the first one is the 4 stars and the last one is the 5 stars. When it starts off on like the perfect book and you think you've found a brand new favourite series, and then it just gets lower and lower. Just feel your heart sinking, and I don't like that. But thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like it. If you would like to subscribe, I'd be super duper grateful. We have 2 more days left on our giveaway for Legendborn, so I will link that down in the description. And if you would like to win a copy of Legendborn by Tracy Dion, pop over to our January wrap up, follow the instructions, and you can get your entry in. It finishes at 6 o'clock on Thursday, so make sure to check that out before the 18th of February. We post new videos every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday, so we'll see you in a couple of days. Bye! I'm gonna stop and gather my thoughts while I have a drink, because I have literally no idea what I'm saying.